They're turning that corner, and you see multiple law enforcement agencies now as our camera zooms into that ambulance with the lights and sirens still on. They're heading up the ramp to UNC, and as we said, you know, it seems like law enforcement was sort of in place, not there just to direct traffic as that officer has been doing right there, but to be able to allow the ambulance and law enforcement to quickly get to the location that they need to be. So, I mean, if in all honesty, as we're still getting the details here, my heart's just sinking thinking about, you know, the officers there who may be arriving. We do, as I mentioned, have a number of crews who are there on those different locations Brandon is mentioning. And so now we're going to check in with Mike Perlstein, who's in that area. And I know, Mike, you're joining us by phone. Thank you for taking time to do this. You mentioned to the newsroom that you were hearing just sirens, what seemed like coming from all across the city. What else can you tell us?
Yes, Brianna. Well, I'm uptown, and I can tell you that where I am, I did see some vehicles, both marked and unmarked, racing to that scene. Apparently, it's around the Walmart, St. Andrew, obviously a major event. And I can tell you that preliminary reports from sources indicate that an officer was hit by a vehicle, pretty serious. Not sure until we hear officially from public information officer or the department, but we know that that sparked some chain of events that brought even more police presence. I'm hearing shots fired. Obviously, that's something that has to be checked out quite carefully as to who fired the shots, who might have been hit. As you mentioned, we have crews racing to the scene. And it's my understanding from the police department that we are expected to get at least a preliminary report from the public information office of the department as to, you know, at least the preliminary facts of what happened there. But it is treated as a serious situation, lights and sirens racing, not just from the 6th District where this happened, but from other nearby districts, including where I am, which is the 2nd District.
Which speaks to the potential gravity of this situation, Mike. So many officers from other departments responding to this. You mentioned NOPD filling us in. They have, we can confirm, set up a staging area over at Rousseau. That's across the street from the Walmart there on Tchoupitoulas. Based on your years of experience covering police and scenes like this, what are you looking at? What are some of the questions that you're raising right now as you get to the bottom of what may have happened here? Right.
Well, I can tell you that you know, this is, you know, the highest code when it is an all points call to, you know, all available officers in, you know, adjoining districts. So whatever happened was quite serious. That almost always involves some kind of injury, and an officer down is perhaps, you know, one of the gravest calls an officer can hear over the radio. Everyone available does respond to that. Now, depending on the circumstances on the ground, whether there are suspects at large, suspects in custody, will then determine, you know, the course of action from there. But the fact that we saw, and I think some of what I saw might have also been officers often form sort of a caravan if an officer needs to be brought to the hospital in an ambulance, just to clear intersections for the most rapid response. That looks like it might be going on in this case. Unsure until we get the further details, but this is being handled right now as the highest level priority for the department.
Yeah, most certainly, Mike. And we're taking a look now at video from the scene there in the presumably the Walmart parking lot. We just cut to another shot here of that caravan, as you mentioned, of first responders following the ambulance to the emergency room there at UMC amid what we do know is an emergency, an officer hit by a vehicle. And as you put it, Mike, those injuries significant here. We don't know the actual details as we await investigators from the New Orleans Police Department to fill us in. They do have a media staging area there, but the gravity of the situation is pretty clear by way of the video that we see. These cruisers rushing to the emergency room now, presumably some serious injuries amid a much larger investigation, and we're still waiting to get filled in on what's going on.
Yeah, as we watch.
That's right, Brad, and I'm glad you mentioned the fact that in this case, it's all first responders when it comes to, some kind of either a caravan or barricading intersections so that ambulances can get to the hospital as quickly as possible. That would include EMS, fire, anyone available, all hands on deck, to help in this kind of emergency. Now, I know that a couple officers who themselves were trying to capture what exactly was going on. It was unclear. So until you have officers at the scene, on the ground, sorting out exactly what happened, especially with shots fired, it's a murky situation to have an officer struck and then shots fired. It raises the question, which hopefully we will find out shortly, if the officer was hit intentionally in some kind of way that then precipitated a gunfight. Obviously, those are the kind of questions we hope to get answers to when we finally do hear officially from the department.